Opening a co-working space can be a daunting task, especially if you're new to the industry. There are so many factors to consider, from location and design to pricing and amenities. But with the right guidance and expertise, you can turn your dream of owning a co-working space into a reality. As former co-working space operators, we have firsthand experience in all things flex. My name is Michael Everts, and I opened a co-working space called Shared Space back in 2016. We grew to 3 locations and over 500 members in a span of 3 years. We focused on business owners and freelancers in the Atlanta suburbs. In 2019, I sold my share of the business and joined the software side of the things with OfficeRND, working with operators to deliver better member experiences. Jamie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Michael. I'm so excited for this series. I was also an operator. I started my first co-working space in Chicago, in the Fulton Market neighborhood in 2012. And then pretty shortly after that, kind of like you, like a quick burst of opening my second location in Palo Alto, which is about a half hour south of San Francisco. I also had a macro role in the industry. I was the executive director of the industry association called the Global Workspace Association for 5 years. And after 8 years of running locations, I spend my time helping operators and community managers launch and operate profitable workspaces.
Yep. Jamie runs an amazing podcast called the Everything Co-working Podcast. When I was a operator, I actually met her through that. Was listening to her podcast episodes and joined her mastermind session and really learned what I needed to know to get my space started back in 2017. Hard to believe that was almost 6 years ago now.
Totally.
But yeah, things have changed a little bit. And yeah, Jamie, so glad that we're able to host this series together to educate people that want to start co-working spaces so they know what they're getting into. So at a high level in this series, we'll cover everything from finding the perfect location and designing your space to building a business plan, as well as marketing and managing your business. We'll discuss some of the latest trends in co-working and how to stay ahead of the curve. And we'll also share some tips and tricks for creating a thriving community of members. So whether you're just starting your co-working space or trying to take your existing business to the next level, this series is for you. So buckle up and get ready to learn from some people who have been there and done that. Let's build the co-working spaces of the future together. And with that intro, Jamie, I'm happy for you to jump into it. And we'll get started on the foundation of a co-working business plan, our very first episode in this series.
Cool. Okay. I love kicking off with sort of the foundation of the business plan, because you and I both know that most of the mistakes that folks make, and so we're glad you're watching now, come from kind of making mistakes around their business model and what they want to get out of the business before they even open the doors. It's easy to fix your marketing or change your software or improve your technology once you're open. You want to really set the right foundation for getting started. So you want to know what's your why for opening your co-working space. That's going to drive a lot of the decisions that you make. And everyone's why will be slightly different. So just know that when you're taking advice from us and from other folks in the industry. And I'll run through a few of the whys that folks tend to have, and I'll ask Michael to share his experience because he had a specific sort of why with his business partner. So some folks might open a co-working space because they want this to be their business, their primary source of income. So maybe you have a day job and you're dreaming of opening a co-working space and you want to, sort of make a living from that. So you're going to have specific requirements around being able to do that, like making that your primary source of income. You might be a landlord, and we are going to have some specific topics around, you, if your role is the landlord, you own a building, and how things might be a little bit different from your perspective. So you might have space that you want to activate, and you might want to add a component of flexible office or co-working to your building. Or you might want to create a space that supports economic development in your community. Or you might have a multi-purpose space. Michael, I had an email from somebody in Boston who reached out and said he wanted a referral to a broker because he's turning, he had a 2,000 square foot space that used to be a bank building. And he wants to negotiate the lease. And so I responded back and I was like, red flags, two of them. One,
Yeah.
really small space. So tell me what your why is, because it's hard to, if you want to make a living on 2,000 square feet,
It's
very
hard.
hard. And then, yeah. And then bank building. I don't know anybody who's done a bank building who would do it again. And
Yep.
he responded back and he had a really specific why. He is a pastor and he wants to use the space for church activities and co-working. And he is not the first one I've had in my programs that has that why. And so then, the decisions he's making are different. So Michael, talk about
Yep.
the model and sort of the why you were pursuing with your business partner when you opened your space.
Yeah, absolutely. So my business partner was a more traditional landlord. And yes, essentially we had a floor plate of about 10,000 square feet that he was looking to convert into co-working. He had never had experience in the co-working industry before. I was newer to the industry. I have a background in working actually with audiovisual, building audiovisual collaboration spaces, which you find many of those in co-working spaces. But yes, essentially we partnered with him to serve the suburban community on kind of the outskirts of Atlanta. There was quite a few co-working spaces more in central Atlanta, but within the outskirts, there was a lot of people who were kind of tired of driving into the office every day. They wanted a community, a space that was close to them. And generally, as you'll find with co-working spaces, I mean, all of your clientele generally lives within 3 to 5 miles around your location. So co-working in many regards are kind of an hyper-local alternative to driving all the way in town, Atlanta in this case, instead of driving in town just to working somewhere close to you. So yeah, we really focused on building in that kind of suburban community around us, and really worked hard to serve that group and benefited from that. So yeah, I mean, in 2017, co-working was still on the newer side of things. I
Pretty
think that was
new.
when we worked
Yeah.
was before it's fall. It was at the big rise at the time, but yeah, that was our community that we served, was focusing on that local suburban group.
And you and your business partner, I think, were also a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of asset owner saying, I'm going to put flex in my building and I'm going to get involved in operating a pretty operational business.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about that in some other episodes. And today that's becoming an even more relevant model. So if you're a landlord that has extra commercial space and you're not going to see, very many 10,000 square foot, 20,000 square foot tenants coming your way, then turning it into flexible space may make sense for you, which kind of goes to our next topic, which is you need to know when you start your space, who's your target market. So Michael,
Yep.
you kind of already gave some great talking points to, for you, it was local businesses, and, entrepreneurs who were looking for professional workspace, right? You have a
Exactly.
beautiful building.
And didn't want to
Was it
drive,
Class A?
30 minutes in
Yeah,
town.
they don't want to drive, right? They don't want to go
Yeah.
downtown, which is becoming even more common in a lot of markets.
Yep.
They want to be near home. So the whole suburban co-working trend is just like really exploding. But Michael, I'm picturing your space. You guys made a lot of decisions that were really, relevant to who you were serving. Can you talk a little bit about some of the decisions you made around like the vibe of the space, the product mix, what you were
Yep.
offering to really like attract your exact like ideal members?
Yeah, I mean, so initially we started off, it was actually 5,000 square feet, and we actually expanded rather quickly to the other side of the building.
Okay.
But one thing that was in high demand was the office product. Sometimes in co working spaces, people don't always think of the office product, but the private office product, in my opinion, is one of the I don't want to say the easiest, but the best products to focus on in your space, in terms of trying to generate good revenue from that space. Open areas are amazing, and we did have a large open area in our space. They're great for setting the vibe and making sure that everybody's happy within the space. But private offices are a great product. And so we probably had about, I'd say, a 60% private office mix to, maybe 30% open space and 10% meeting rooms. Those really make up the three main products that we see within the spaces. Again, that's private offices, that's open co-working, and then that's the meeting rooms. And so, yeah, whenever you're designing your space, it's really important that you think about what products are most important to that local community that's working there. Maybe if you're in a busy business hub, it makes sense to have more meeting rooms in that space. But yes, definitely working with our members, understanding what they wanted, what they needed, helped dictate as we expanded to different locations and even grew within that building, the kind of mix that we were going to build our space around.
Yeah, I love that. And Michael, in your current role at Office R&D, I'm sure you see this play out, and I do in my role as
Yep.
well. When you create a space that's really designed really well with the right, your market wants offices. You figure
Yep.
out what size they want. Is it an individual office? Is it groups of 2 or 3? Or is it tech startups that want 10 or 20?
Yep.
You have a little bit of like educated, guessing, and we'll talk a little bit about how to validate, but it's really a customer acquisition business, right? Your products are your offices or your meeting rooms, or maybe your hot desks, your dedicated desks. And you want to really design them from an aesthetic, a level of professionalism, even the furniture you choose to really attract your customers. So you have to know
Yep.
what they are looking for. So serving like attorneys versus creative professionals, you might make some different decisions around aesthetics and even types of meeting rooms. Do you want more creative
Exactly.
meeting rooms? Do you want, more professional? What kind of technology? Michael, that's your background, and Office R&D has great technology around meeting room, like automation and reservations, and some of those aspects can be really important to some end users. So in terms of validating your customer, it's a little bit, and I'd love to hear, Michael, kind of how you did it. So I
Yep.
host a program called the Coworking Startup School, and this is the very first module that we go through. It's
Oh, wow.
really focused on, you have to, yeah. People are like, no, I want to get to like picking out the furniture. It's like, well, how do you know what furniture? The furniture should be chosen based on who your customer
Your
is going
type
to
of
be. And
customers.
again,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a customer acquisition business. I almost like want to, change the name of it from co-working to, customer acquisition for workspace. So you're constantly having to attract new members, and to stay full, people transition out, people transition in. So you got to know who your ideal customer is and make decisions. You want somebody to walk in the door and say, this is the place for me. This
Yeah,
is what
I
I'm
feel
looking
this place. I
for.
love this place. And that
Yeah.
happens sometimes with members. They immediately walked in and they barely even needed a tour before they signed up. And the reverse of that, you had people that walked in and it wasn't their vibe, and that's completely okay, because you were, by the furniture you pick, the way you design it, you were really setting the space for a type of community member, and you need to be deliberate about that. It's not like, I hate to say, traditional commercial real estate where they just get 4 walls, buy some furniture, throw it in there, and hope someone will come. You are building your space for a specific type of community member, and you really need to be really, like I said, deliberate about that when you're designing and first building out your space.
100%. We recommend folks do customer interviews if you're not
Yes.
sure. Some people create a space because they know exactly who they're going after. And I suspect that was kind of, your position. Like you and your business partner knew who was, have had that
Yep.
gap, who had that need. But if you're not entirely sure in terms of like, well, how big should the offices be? Are people looking for single or, triples? You want to do that research with folks that are likely to be your members. You can also, work with your broker to get some really good like demographic research, which is a little broader, but to understand kind of who's in the market and what they're looking for.
Yep.
And then the next piece is really around we talked about this a little, like around the why. What's your profit goal?
Yep.
And that this will drive the size of your space. I have this conversation with folks all the time. If you're watching this and you're thinking about opening a space, you're probably intimidated by signing a long-term lease
Yep.
and signing a lease on a larger space. But yeah, Michael, again, with your,
Yep.
you through Office R&D see lots of folks start spaces of all different sizes, and you know what that looks like on the back end. There's less profit potential on 2,000 square feet than 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000. It's a bigger investment to get into bigger space. But if you're really looking to sort of create this lifestyle business or an investment and scale, then you got to be thinking about larger space. Michael, what would you
Absolutely.
what would you add
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you definitely hear from people that are trying to open spaces that are, say, sub 5,000 square feet. And I do think there is a model that can work there, but it's definitely more difficult. You need to have some really strong model, whether it's event focused or meeting room focused, if you want to be profitable in this business. And so, yes, the obviously having a bigger office can make you more revenue, but it's also more that you have to manage. You're going to need more staff. You're going to need to pay more expensive for the build out. So it's definitely a trade-off there, but I definitely, it can be hard to make a profit on smaller spaces traditionally, given my experience with some of this stuff.
Yeah, 100%. We'll talk a little bit more about that in some of our future sessions.
Episodes.
So, Michael, anything else you want to cover before we wrap up on our first session here?
No, yeah, I was just catching up the slides a little bit. No, I think that we gave a pretty good overview here. What I will say, just for those people listening, is that this is the start of a series really going through all the key steps of opening and running a space. As this one was really focused on that initial business plan and validating the customers, but we have a lot more planned that will give you a great overview of how to manage your space. So yeah, we're really excited to have you guys with us today. And on our next episode, we will be talking about choosing your location and structuring your real estate deal, which is another really important aspect of this whole process.
Love it. Yes, Michael, I'm looking forward to our next episode.
Yep. Jamie, thank you much for talking with me today and looking forward to the next one. You guys have a great one, and we'll talk to y'all soon.